The transport ship arrived at the orbital station without warning. Its hull was dark, carrying the crest of a man known only as the Baron. Few trusted him, yet everyone respected his power. He often moved between colonies, bringing strange goods and rare treasures from forgotten corners of space. People whispered about his wealth, his secrets, and his unusual sense of generosity. But no one could predict what he had brought this time. The station commander stood at the docking bay as the Baron's crew unloaded a sealed container. It was large, shaped like a capsule, its surface smooth and metallic, with symbols no one recognized. The Baron smiled as he placed his hand on the container. "This," he said with quiet pride, "is my gift to humanity. Guard it well, for it holds something precious." The commander frowned. A gift from the Baron was rarely without strings. Still, curiosity spread through the gathered officers and engineers. The capsule was taken to the central hall, where the best scanners on the station tried to identify what lay inside. Readings were unclear, shifting between organic and mechanical. Marcus, a young engineer with sharp eyes and steady hands, stood in the crowd. He felt uneasy. Gifts wrapped in mystery were never simple, and this one seemed more alive than any machine he had studied. His instinct told him that opening the capsule would change everything. When the moment came, the hall grew silent. With a command, the capsule unlocked. Hissing sounds filled the air as the front panel slowly slid open. Light spilled out, revealing a small figure lying within. Gasps spread through the room. It was not treasure. It was not a machine. Inside the capsule was a girl. Her skin glowed faintly, not from light but from an unusual hue, unlike any human shade. Her hair was fine, like threads of silver, and her eyes were closed in deep sleep. The commander stepped closer, unsure whether to be alarmed or amazed. "This is an alien child," he whispered. No one had ever seen a species like her. The galaxy was vast, but this form was new, unrecorded in any archives. The Baron, calm as always, spoke again. "She is rare. She is fragile. And she is yours. Humanity will decide her fate." He offered no further explanation. Before anyone could question him, he and his crew returned to their ship, leaving the capsule and the girl behind. Confusion filled the hall. Scientists rushed forward to scan her. Some feared she could be dangerous, others feared she could be sick, but none of the scans showed weapons or illness. Marcus watched quietly, noticing details others missed: the way her fingers twitched slightly, the slow rise and fall of her chest, the faint sound of breath that proved she was alive. The commander ordered that she be taken to the medical wing. Marcus volunteered to assist, though he was not a doctor. Something about the girl drew him in. She did not look threatening. She looked lost. In the med bay, she was placed under gentle lights while machines monitored her condition. Her pulse was weak but steady, her body temperature cooler than human, yet stable. The doctors were amazed. "Her biology is close to ours," one remarked, "but not the same. She is something between familiar and unknown." As they worked, Marcus remained by the window, watching her carefully. He felt an unexpected sense of responsibility. He remembered the Baron's words, "Guard it well." Why would the Baron give such a being to humans? What purpose did it serve? Hours passed, and the girl did not wake. But Marcus noticed her expression soften, as if she sensed the calm atmosphere around her. He adjusted the blanket placed over her, careful not to disturb the wires attached to her. For a brief moment, he thought her eyes might open. but she remained asleep. The station buzzed with questions. Was she the last of her kind? A messenger from another world? A key to technology hidden far away? No one had answers, only speculation. Yet one truth was clear to Marcus: this was no ordinary gift. It was a responsibility unlike any the station had faced. Humanity had been handed a life, fragile and unknown, wrapped in mystery by the hands of a baron. And that life, resting quietly in the medical bay, would soon change the path of everyone who chose to protect her. The medical bay was unusually quiet that night. Most of the station had returned to routine work, but the strange gift still weighed heavily on everyone's mind. Scientists wanted more tests, officers demanded security, and crew members whispered about the girl as if she were a legend. Marcus, however, stayed in the med bay, sitting on a chair near her bed. He told himself it was because he wanted to monitor the equipment, but in truth, he simply could not leave. Something about her presence felt important, as if she carried a story waiting to be told. The girl lay still under the soft glow of medical lights. Her breathing was steady, though slow, and her silver hair caught the light like threads of glass. Marcus found himself studying the way her hands rested on the blanket, how fragile they seemed. She looked no older than 12 or 13 by human years, yet there was an air of age around her, as though she belonged to a history far older than the station itself. Hours passed. Marcus almost drifted into sleep when he heard a faint sound. A breath sharper than the rest. His eyes opened wide. The girl's fingers twitched again, this time more clearly. Her chest rose quickly, then steadied. Slowly, her eyelids moved, revealing eyes unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. They glimmered with a faint shade of blue mixed with silver, deep and bright at the same time. Marcus stood quickly but kept his voice calm. "You're safe," he said softly, unsure if she would understand. The girl blinked at him, confused. She opened her mouth, but her words came out in a flowing language of soft tones and gentle rhythm. Marcus could not understand, but he felt the emotion behind it, fear mixed with curiosity. He raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "It's all right," he repeated. "We won't hurt you." The girl's gaze followed him carefully. She tried to sit up, but her weak body trembled. Marcus quickly adjusted the bed, letting it lift her gently. She seemed grateful, her eyes softening for a moment. The door opened, and a doctor rushed in. "She's awake," the doctor exclaimed, hurrying to check the monitors. The machines confirmed her steady pulse and stable breathing. "Remarkable," the doctor whispered. Other crew members entered, drawn by the news. The girl shrank back slightly, pressing against the bed as the crowd grew around her. Marcus noticed her distress. He stepped forward, lifting a hand to hold back the others. "Give her space," he said firmly. Reluctantly, they obeyed, retreating a few steps. The girl's eyes met Marcus's again. This time, she did not look away. She spoke another word, soft but clear, pointing at him. Marcus had no idea what it meant, but the tone carried a sense of recognition. Later that day, attempts were made to communicate. Linguists were called in, using translation devices and pattern recognition. At first, nothing worked. Her language flowed like music, hard to break into words. But progress came when Marcus brought a small datapad and showed her pictures. He tapped the screen to show an image of the station, then pointed around them. Slowly, she seemed to understand the connection. She repeated the sound Marcus made, "Station." Her voice was light, almost like singing. Encouraged, Marcus continued. He showed her an image of himself, then tapped his chest. Marcus. She tried to repeat it, the syllables strange on her tongue, but close enough. She tapped her chest and spoke her own name. It was soft, lyrical, and difficult for him to copy. But he tried, and she smiled faintly at his effort. It was the first true smile he had seen from her. As the days passed, her strength returned little by little. She ate cautiously, fascinated by human food. She listened to music on Marcus's device, tilting her head as if memorizing every note. The crew remained cautious, but many were drawn to her presence. Even those who feared her began to soften when they saw her laugh quietly at Marcus's clumsy attempts to repeat her words. But questions remained. Why had the Baron given her to them? Where had she come from? What dangers followed her? One evening, when most of the crew had left, Marcus sat beside her again. He tapped the data pad and brought up a picture of a star. Home, he asked, pointing at her, then at the star. She hesitated, her smile fading. Slowly, she touched the screen and traced a shape that was not on the map. It looked like a world broken in two. Marcus felt a chill. She lowered her hand and looked away, her eyes reflecting sorrow. Though he did not understand her words, he understood her silence. She was not just a gift. She was a survivor. And her story was only beginning to unfold. The station had not felt this unsettled in years. Ever since the girl awoke, her presence had spread like a quiet storm. Officers held secret meetings. Scientists stayed up long hours. Crew members traded stories in the halls. Some believed she was harmless. Others believed she carried danger they could not yet see. Marcus tried to ignore the rumors, but they followed him everywhere. People asked him questions he could not answer. Why did she call you first? Does she trust you more than us? What is she hiding? Marcus had no answers. All he knew was that she was trying to learn, trying to live, and he felt she deserved that chance. One morning, the commander called a meeting. Marcus was summoned along with senior officers, doctors, and the head of security. The atmosphere was heavy, as if everyone already knew something important was about to be revealed. On the main screen, old records appeared. Grainy footage showed the Baron's ship years earlier, landing on a forgotten mining world. The Baron's crew carried crates marked with strange symbols, the same kind etched on the capsule that had held the girl. The records also showed wreckage scattered across the land, twisted metal, burned ground, signs of battle. The commander spoke in a low voice. We believe the Baron was present at the fall of an unknown colony. He was not a rescuer. He was a collector. He gathered what remained. And this girl, may be the last remnant of her kind. Silence filled the room. Marcus felt his chest tighten. The girl's sorrow, the image of a broken world she had drawn, it all made sense now. She had not been given as a gift. She had been taken, carried like an object, and delivered to them as though her life were a token. The head of security crossed his arms. If this is true, then keeping her puts us at risk. Whoever destroyed her world may come looking. And if they find her here, we will be the ones facing their anger. The doctors objected. She is a child, not a weapon. We cannot hand her over to an uncertain fate. Voices rose, each side building stronger arguments. Marcus listened, his hands tightening into fists. Finally, he spoke. She is alive because we care for her. If the Baron saw her as a burden, then let us prove him wrong. Let us show that humans protect life, not abandon it? The room quieted, but the commander did not give a clear answer. Instead, he ordered, "We will continue observing. But prepare for the possibility that others may come searching." Later, Marcus returned to the med bay. The girl was practicing words on the datapad, her voice soft but steady. She smiled when she saw him, holding up the pad proudly. On the screen was a single word, written in human letters, "Friend." Marcus sat beside her, his heart heavy yet warmed by her effort. "Yes," he said gently. "Friend." She repeated it again, her smile widening. But her happiness could not erase his thoughts. If others were truly hunting her, then her safety was fragile. He wondered if she understood the danger surrounding her. Perhaps she did. There was a quiet strength in her eyes, even when she smiled. That night, while most of the crew slept, Marcus studied the capsule she had arrived in. The strange symbols glowed faintly when touched. He wondered if they were not just markings but coordinates, warnings, or even messages left by her people. He copied the shapes into his tablet, determined to learn their meaning. Suddenly, the station's communication system detected an unusual signal. Faint, distant, but directed. It was not human. The commander received the report with alarm. "Someone is searching," he said. "They are scanning for traces of her kind." The officers exchanged worried glances. The Baron's gift had indeed placed them in danger. And if the signal grew stronger, it would only be a matter of time before a ship followed its trail to their station. Marcus returned to the med bay once more, unable to rest. The girl was asleep, her breathing calm. He watched her silently, his resolve hardening. Whether or not the station decided to protect her, he already knew his choice. She was not the Baron's prize. She was not a burden. She was a life entrusted to them. And he would not let her be taken again. The station lived in two moods at once. On one side, life went on as usual. Ships came and went, supplies were checked, and workers followed their daily schedules. On the other side, everything felt uncertain. Everyone knew about the alien girl, and everyone knew about the strange signals drifting through space. Whispers spread faster than official reports. Some crew members feared she would bring trouble, while others quietly admired the bravery of keeping her safe. Through all of this, Marcus remained close to her. The girl, who now answered to the name Lyra, the closest human sound to her real name, was learning more every day. Her words were still broken, but her eagerness to speak was stronger than any barrier. Marcus often brought simple objects to help her understand: a cup, a tool, a datapad. She would hold them, repeat their names, and sometimes laugh when Marcus stumbled over her own language in return. What began as lessons became a shared routine. Each evening, Marcus would sit with her, and the med bay would fill with quiet voices, laughter, and the rhythm of two people bridging the gap between worlds. One afternoon, Marcus brought a small music player. He let a gentle tune play, soft and calming. Lyra tilted her head, her silver hair catching the light. Slowly, she tapped the table in rhythm, her eyes glowing with joy. Music seemed to reach her in ways words could not. She hummed along, creating notes that blended beautifully with the melody. For a moment, the med bay did not feel like a place of caution or fear. It felt alive. Others noticed the bond growing between them. A doctor remarked, "She trusts you more than anyone else." Marcus did not answer, but he knew it was true. When crowds gathered, she shrank back. When officers questioned her, she grew quiet. But when Marcus was near, she spoke, smiled, and showed glimpses of the world she had lost. One night, as stars glimmered outside the station windows, Marcus showed her a map of known worlds. She studied it carefully, then used her finger to draw shapes on the screen. One was a mountain, another was a river, and finally, she drew a circle that cracked in half. Her eyes dimmed with sadness. Marcus understood. She was telling him about her home, the place destroyed. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered. She did not know the words, but she seemed to feel the meaning. She touched his hand lightly, a gesture of comfort rather than sorrow. In that moment, Marcus realized she carried not only loss but also a strength that refused to fade. The commander visited the med bay soon after. His voice was calm, but his words were heavy. "We cannot hide her forever. If the signals grow stronger, ships will come. We must be ready." He studied Lyra carefully, then added, "But she is more than just a risk. Perhaps she can help us." The idea spread quickly. If Lyra knew anything of her people's technology, it might give the station an advantage. At first, she seemed unsure when Marcus asked her about it. She traced strange symbols in the air, too complex for him to follow. But when he brought her broken devices to examine, she surprised everyone by pointing to hidden parts and drawing patterns that hinted at repairs no human had considered. Her knowledge was fragmented, but real. The engineers began to see her as more than a fragile child. She was a key to understanding designs far beyond their own. Still, Marcus noticed something others missed. Lyra never smiled when they studied her abilities. She grew serious, almost afraid, as if memories weighed heavily on her whenever she touched anything from her past. Marcus decided not to push her. To him, she was not a tool or a secret. She was a person, and her value was not only in what she knew. Days blended into weeks. The bond between Marcus and Lyra grew stronger, tested by language but built on patience. She trusted him enough to rest her head on his arm when tired, and he trusted her enough to share his thoughts about the stars, the earth he had left behind, and the hope that one day she would feel at home again. But peace could not last. The signals grew louder, sharper, and more precise. The commander gathered the senior crew and announced the truth. "They are searching for her. Whoever destroyed her world is still out there, and they are coming closer. Soon, they will find us." Marcus looked at Lyra, who sat quietly by his side, unaware of the words but sensitive to the unease in the room. He felt her small hand curl into his sleeve. In that simple touch, Marcus knew one thing with certainty: whatever storm was coming, he would stand between it and her. The warning came sooner than anyone expected. A watch officer on the station's outer ring noticed strange movement in deep space. At first, it looked like background noise, but then patterns appeared: energy spikes, faint but steady, drawing closer. These were not random signals. They were scouts. The commander gathered his officers in the control deck. The display showed a faint outline of several small craft slipping through the void. "They are searching," the commander said grimly. "They are following the trail of the Baron's capsule. We must prepare for the possibility of contact." Fear spread quickly among the crew. Some argued for silence, suggesting they hide all signs of the girl and deny her presence if questioned. Others wanted to send her away on a transport before the strangers arrived. But both plans carried risks. The enemy would not stop once they were close. Marcus sat silently, his thoughts heavy. Lyra was not in the meeting, but he could almost hear her soft voice in his memory. She had already lost one home. Could he let her lose another? That evening, Marcus went to the med bay. Lyra sat on her bed, holding the data pad. She had drawn another picture, a starship with human markings. She pointed at it, then at herself, then at Marcus. He understood her meaning. She trusted the humans to protect her. Marcus forced a smile. "We'll keep you safe," he promised. Even if she did not fully grasp the words, she nodded as if she believed him. The next day, the first encounter occurred. A small enemy probe drifted near the station's sensors. It was sleek, black, and silent, scanning every signal it could capture. The security team wanted to destroy it immediately, but the commander hesitated. If they attacked, the enemy would know for certain that something valuable was hidden here. The probe lingered for hours before moving away. Tension gripped the station. Everyone knew this was only the beginning. That night, Marcus could not sleep. He walked the dim halls and found himself back at the capsule that had carried Lyra. The strange symbols still glowed faintly. He wondered if they carried more than a message, perhaps a beacon, a call that could not be silenced. If so, then the Baron had not given a gift but planted a signal for hunters to follow. Days later, the enemy ships appeared in full. 3 dark vessels slipped out of hyperspace, their forms sharp and angular. They circled the station like predators. A message followed, written in simple universal code: "Surrender the survivor. She belongs to us." The commander read the message aloud in the control deck. Anger rippled through the officers. The enemy's claim was not a request but a command, as if the girl were nothing more than an object. "Do we answer?" one officer asked. The commander's jaw tightened. "Not yet. We prepare." Word spread quickly. Panic threatened to rise, but discipline held. Weapons were armed, shields tested, and every crew member readied for defense. Still, the enemy vessels did not attack. They waited, as if certain the humans would eventually hand her over. In the med bay, Marcus explained what he could to Lyra with the help of drawings and simple words. She listened quietly, her eyes wide with fear. At last, she reached out and gripped his hand tightly. She spoke her language, words Marcus could not understand, but the meaning was clear enough. She was asking if she would be left behind again. Marcus shook his head. "No," he said firmly. "Not again." The station lights dimmed suddenly as the enemy ships began sending waves of interference, testing their defenses. Engineers scrambled to adjust systems. The crew grew restless, waiting for the first real strike. In that tense silence, the commander spoke to Marcus privately. "She is connected to this. They will not stop until they have her. But if she knows something that can help us, we must learn it now." Marcus looked at Lyra. She was no longer just a frightened child. There was determination in her eyes, a spark of memory she had not yet shared. Perhaps she understood more than she had revealed. As alarms echoed through the halls, Marcus made a silent vow. If the enemy thought humans would surrender so easily, they would learn otherwise. Humanity's strength was not in numbers or technology alone. It was in resilience, in the will to protect even those who were not their own. The chase had ended. The confrontation was about to begin. The enemy ships tightened their formation around the station. Their dark hulls reflected no light, moving like shadows across the stars. Every crew member felt the pressure. The station was strong but not built for a battle of this scale. Still, no one spoke of surrender. The commander gathered the officers in the control deck. "They want the girl," he said, his voice steady. "But they will not have her. If we hold the line, we prove that humanity does not give up life to fear. His words spread through the comm channels, reaching every section of the station. Engineers, security teams, and medics all felt the weight of that vow. In the med bay, Marcus prepared Lyra for what was coming. He sat by her side, showing her a simple drawing of the enemy ships and the station standing firm. "Fight," he said, pointing to the picture of the station. "Together." Lyra studied the drawing, her silver blue eyes narrowing with thought. Then she pressed her hand over the datapad, erasing Marcus's rough sketch, and replaced it with symbols from her own language. The shapes curved and flowed like waves, forming a pattern that seemed almost alive. Marcus frowned. "What does it mean?" She pointed to the station, then to her drawing, then placed her hand over her chest. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Shield." At first Marcus did not understand, but when he showed the symbols to the engineers, their eyes widened. "This is not random," one whispered. "It is a design. A way to bend energy fields. If we adapt our shield projectors, we might reinforce them far beyond their limits." There was little time. The enemy ship sent another message, shorter this time: "Surrender now, or be destroyed." The commander ignored it. Instead, he gave the order: "Use the design. Trust her." The engineering teams worked at a frantic pace, guided by Lyra's gestures and Marcus's translation. She pointed at circuits, adjusted wave patterns, and marked lines of energy flow. Though she struggled with human tools, her mind moved quickly, remembering knowledge from a world that no longer existed. When the enemy finally attacked, the station was ready. Beams of energy struck from two sides, but instead of collapsing, the shields glowed with a new strength. The modified projectors bent the force, scattering it like light through water. The crew cheered as the first wave of fire was repelled. Lyra stood by Marcus, watching the battle unfold on the screens. Her face was calm, yet her small hands trembled. She spoke a word in her language, one Marcus did not know, but he felt the meaning. It was a memory of her people, of the way they had once fought to survive. The enemy adjusted quickly, sending drones to breach the station. Small, sharp machines raced through space, aiming for weak points. But the humans adapted as well. Security teams guided by Lyra's advice set traps within the docking bays, drawing the drones into ambushes. Explosions lit the outer decks, and cheers filled the comm lines once more. Still, the battle was not easy. The enemy's power was greater, their technology advanced. Systems failed under the strain, corridors shook with impact, and alarms rang through the halls. Yet the station held. Not because it was stronger, but because its people refused to break. Marcus never left Lyra's side. He translated her instructions, carried her drawings to the engineers, and reassured her when fear touched her eyes. At one point, when the station trembled under a heavy strike, she reached out and gripped his hand. Together, they stood as the heart of the defense, human resilience guided by alien memory. Hours later, the enemy ships broke formation. They had expected an easy capture, not a long fight. Their scans showed the humans had changed their shields, something they could not explain. For the first time, the hunters hesitated. The commander seized the chance. "Send them a message," he ordered. The comm officer transmitted a simple line: "She is under our protection. We will not yield." The enemy ships circled once more, then retreated into the darkness of space. The battle was over, at least for now. Inside the control deck, exhausted cheers filled the air. Humans had stood against greater power and endured. In the med bay, Lyra sank into her bed, her strength drained but her eyes glowing with quiet pride. Marcus sat beside her, his own body heavy with fatigue. He whispered, "We did it." Lyra smiled faintly and whispered back a single word she had learned in human tongue. Together. The station floated in silence after the battle. The enemy ships had withdrawn into the dark, leaving behind only the memory of their strength. Repairs began immediately, with engineers working in every corridor and medics treating the wounded. Yet beneath the exhaustion, there was pride. Against all odds, humanity had stood firm. In the control deck, the commander reviewed the damage reports. Shields were weak, power reserves strained, but the core of the station remained whole. "We survived," he said quietly. Then, louder, so every officer could hear, "and we will continue to survive." This was not just a defense of a station. This was a defense of what it means to be human. Word of the victory spread quickly through the crew. For many, it was more than survival, it was proof that they could protect life even when the universe demanded they surrender it. They had shown strength not through conquest, but through guardianship. Meanwhile, in the med bay, Lyra slowly recovered. The effort of guiding the engineers had drained her, but her spirit was stronger than before. She now walked short distances on her own, speaking more words in human tongue each day. When she looked at Marcus, her eyes held both gratitude and trust. Marcus often wondered what she saw when she looked at him. To him, she was not just a survivor, not just a secret left behind by the Baron. She had become part of his life, someone whose laughter and presence made the cold metal halls of the station feel warm. One evening, as repairs continued outside the windows, Marcus brought her to the observation deck. It was her first time there since awakening. The stars stretched endlessly, countless lights scattered across the black. Lyra pressed her hand to the glass, her eyes wide. For the first time, she whispered the word she had practiced for days. "Home." Marcus's chest tightened. "Do you mean here?" he asked. Lyra nodded slowly. Her voice was soft, but the meaning was clear. She had lost her world, but she had found another place to belong. Not everyone on the station agreed. Some officers still argued that her presence placed them in danger. Others wanted to study her knowledge further. But the commander settled the matter. Standing before his officers, he declared, "She stays. She is under our care. If her enemies return, they will find that humanity does not abandon its own." Those words carried weight. For the first time, Lyra was not a burden or a mystery. She was family. Weeks passed. Life slowly returned to normal, though the memory of the enemy ships never fully faded. Patrols doubled, sensors sharpened, and every crew member knew they had entered a new era. Humanity had stepped into the notice of greater powers, but they had not bowed. Marcus continued teaching Lyra, and now she taught him as well. She showed him symbols from her language, gestures from her culture, and songs that carried the rhythm of her lost people. At night, he would hear her humming quietly, soft melodies that blended sadness with hope. One day, she surprised him by asking a question in halting human words. "Why help me?" Marcus thought for a long moment before answering. "Because life matters. Because no one deserves to be alone. And because, you are my friend." Lyra smiled, a bright and true smile, and repeated the word she loved most in her new language. Together. The future was uncertain. The enemy might return with greater force. The Baron's true motives were still unknown. And the galaxy remained vast, filled with secrets both dangerous and wondrous. But in that moment, as Marcus and Lyra stood together beneath the stars, there was hope. Humanity had taken a stand not for conquest, not for power, but for compassion. And in doing so, they had gained something greater than victory. They had gained a bond that would carry them forward into the unknown. For Lyra, it was a new beginning. For Marcus, it was proof of what humanity could be. And for the stars above, it was the quiet start of a story that would echo far beyond a single station. A story of resilience. A story of trust. A story of humans and the girl who became one of them.